I don't want to. Yeah, I have to get in here too. That's all I need out of there. Stuff going on here. Yeah. Let's see what I've got. I know I have a cake downstairs somewhere, and I don't want to hang it here. I'm trying to avoid hanging it over the front. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. I should probably do it. I'll have to move this a couple times because when I play taps, I have to point it at the box. Thank you very much. Yeah. Good morning. I am testing out this live stream to see if it is getting audio. I am testing out this live stream to see if it is getting audio. And it does. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll be starting our ceremony here in the morning at 8:30. If you are joining us this afternoon, that ceremony will start at 11:30. Please do come down and join us on our northwest steps for our main ceremony. This ceremony is to mark the moments in the morning with the placing of wreaths. And again, that will start at 8:30. Thank you.
Bluetooth is waiting for connection. Bluetooth is connected.
Good morning. Welcome to the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony, Part 1. Here inside the monument, a little more somber, a little more intimate to mark the moments of the morning. This afternoon at 11:30 a.m., we'll be meeting on our northwest steps here at the monument to conduct a full ceremony in remembrance of those not only lost on 9/11, but who served in the subsequent war on terrorism in the 20 years after, 24 years now. We will have a keynote speaker, Rear Admiral retired U.S. Coast Guard, Michael N. Parks, who is the current CEO of the Northeast Ohio region for the American Red Cross. He'll be speaking about his service, which includes deployment to several disasters, and the work he does with the Red Cross. We'll also have presentation of these wreaths along with others marking the branches of the military by civilian and military presenters, escorted by Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. This morning, we'll be going through day on September 11th, 2000. Years ago was much like today, eerily like today. We were consumed with our own world. We were heading into work on a perfectly clear, beautiful September morning, just as it is today. We were going to our offices. We were having our coffee. We were frustrated that we weren't able to get breakfast in. We were dealing with getting the kids to school and never thinking that the world was about to change. At 8:46, everything would change for everyone. We will mark that moment with the placing of a wreath at 8:46. Leave you right now with some time to reflect how it's going and how it was going 24 years ago. If you're too young for that, maybe think about what your family, your loved ones were doing 24 years ago today. Thank you. Welcome back to the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument, September 11th, 2001 Remembrance Ceremony here in the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. We invite you to come down. We're open 10 to 5:30 every single day. Today, obviously, we're open a little earlier. And this week, we highlight our 9/11 exhibit. This exhibit lists the names of those lost on 9/11, as well as the moments that we're going to mark today, and allows for a little bit of remembrance by those who visit, who can write out on a Post-it note their remembrances of today, whether it be firsthand or of loved ones that they were never able to meet. We invite everyone to join us in remembering those that not only lost their lives on 9/11, but were also involved in the subsequent 20-year war on terror. We include on this wall our 13 Northeast Ohio residents who have been identified of those who were lost on 9/11. They were lost across the spectrum from the North Tower, the South Tower, the Pentagon, and Flight 93 in Pennsylvania. At 8:46, we note that Flight 11 is already under control of terrorists. They have been hijacked and are rerouting toward the North Tower. These people didn't know what was happening, didn't understand that the world was changing and that they were a major part of it. And what they did understand was that something was wrong, and they began to fight back. And we know that in both planes that hit the towers, as well as the one that hit the Pentagon, and certainly Flight 93 in Pennsylvania, those brave people faced death and faced it boldly as they fought back against their attackers. I was a college student. I had reported to work in the morning at the bookstore at 8 a.m. We were going through our morning, just getting ready to go, entering in some of our receipts, getting our coffee, and all of a sudden we were told to come to the break room that something was happening. It was a normal morning. The rumble of planes flying overhead, the bustle of just trying to get your day started, and the beautiful weather that we were having. It wasn't until just after 8:46 that we were alerted. No one thought that there was a possibility that we could be under attack. Was this an accident? A tragic accident? What would happen next? But surely this was an isolated incident. So we headed back to work. At 8:46, Flight 11 hit the North Tower. As we count down the moments to 8:46, we place a wreath in honor of Flight 11. And we will play taps in remembrance. And I offer a time for prayer and reflection. After which, we'll read some biographies of these 13 individuals. William Moskal, 50 of Brecksville, was born August 17, 1951. He was killed at the World Trade Center. A risk insurance consultant for Marsh, Inc., Moskal normally worked at the BP building in downtown Cleveland, but was at the company's headquarters in New York for a one-day meeting about potential hazards at construction sites. Bill Moskal's business and personal lives were wrapped around sports and fitness. As a risk consultant for Marsh and McLennan, he made sure potential clients were insurable. In recent months, his projects included proposed new stadiums for the Cincinnati Reds baseball team and the Cincinnati Bengals pro football team. At home in the Cleveland suburbs, he worked out daily. He would run with his dogs at age 50. He boxed and wrestled once a week. He coached teams in every sport his 13-year-old son Andy played. He juggled business trips, including a September 11th meeting to the World Trade Center North Tower. Around family activities. As his wife Lorraine said, he was always available to us. He was truly the other half. At 8:05 a.m., Bill Moskal called his wife before leaving his room in the Marriott Hotel inside the World Trade Center for the meeting. He loved opera, his wife added. When we had a memorial service for him, I joked with the priest that he would have loved to have had Andre Bocelli sing Ave Maria because he adored him. There was a memorial service the next day at Ground Zero in New York. I couldn't make it, but I watched on television. Andrea Bocelli was there and sang Ave Maria. Quite a coincidence. Christina Ryook, 25, grew up in Westlake. She was born November 15, 1975. She was killed at the World Trade Center. The 25-year-old Westlake High School alumni was at work at Cantor Fitzgerald on the 104th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center when a hijacked jet crashed into the tower at 8:46 a.m., 6 floors below her office. Ryook was born in Seoul, South Korea, and immigrated at age 4 with her parents. The family settled in Westlake, and she attended Bassett Elementary, Lee Burnson Middle School, and Westlake High School, where she was active in civic-minded organizations like Pride, SAD, and the Teen Institute. Ryook also was a candy striper at St. John Medical Center, then called St. John West Shore Hospital, was a member of the concert band, jazz band, marching band, and National Honor Society. After graduating from Westlake High School in 1994, she attended the University of Michigan, where she was president of the Asian Association and a member of the task force for the United Asian Association Organization Cultural Arts Chair of the Korean Students Association, and she organized the annual cultural program for adopted Korean children. Ryook earned a degree in psychology in 1998 and pursued additional degrees in history and education at Eastern Michigan University. In 2000, she took a break from her school and moved to New York City, but maintained close ties with her family and friends. An only child, she called her parents daily and was known for sending birthday gifts to family and friends. Few have made love seem so effortless and generosity so routine, says the Christina's Corner Memorial at Westlake Porter Public Library. Ryook's parents had a memorial service for her in October 2001 at St. Clarence Church in North Olmsted. The following year, they learned that her remains had been recovered, so a funeral took place September 14, 2002, at St. Andrew Kim Korean Catholic Church in Cleveland. Her final resting place is in Westlake's Evergreen Cemetery near her grandfather, Hong Juk Ryook. Liza Stanton, Westlake Historical Society president, ensures that Ryook is not forgotten by the community. She places flowers, usually purple, Ryook's favorite color, on her grave every year. The community also remembers Ryook through Christina's Corner at the library, which was renovated and rededicated in May 2016. It is painted purple and includes fiber optic lights, star lighting, and star-shaped pendant lights because her middle name, Sunga, means star baby in Korean. There are photos of Ryook and a charcoal rubbing of her name from the 9/11 memorial in New York. Christina loved children and had planned to pursue a career in education, so it seemed fitting to create a special area for children and caregivers to read together, said Andrew Manglis, the library's director. We want to make sure that no one ever forgets the historical significance of this corner, the tragic loss and beauty of a beautiful young lady from our community, and the horrific manner in which it happened. The recently rebuilt Westlake High School includes a Christina S. Ryook fiction corner in the media center with 2 plaques, one with her graduation portrait and school activities, and the other listing the winners of the annual $4,000 Christina Ryook Memorial Scholarship, presented in memory to Westlake High School graduates who attend her college alma mater, the University of Michigan. Joseph Heller, 37, grew up in Lakewood and lived in Rocky River. Born May 5th, 1864, he was killed in the World Trade Center. Heller, a 1982 graduate of St. Ignatius High School. Heller was a commodities floor broker on the New York Mercantile Exchange. He rarely went to the office of his employer, Car Futures, Inc., but was there for a meeting when the first jet crashed into the building a few floors above him. He immediately called his wife, Mary Jean, to tell her the building had been hit. He was okay, and that he would try to escape down an emergency stairway. Mr. Heller was born in Lakewood, Ohio on May 5th, 1964, and grew up in Rocky River. In high school, he coached CYO basketball and was a defensive end on the St. Ignatius football team. Mr. Heller obtained a bachelor's degree in biology in 1986 from Fairfield University, where he met his wife, Mary Jean O'Shea. Whenever Joseph Heller felt strongly that he should do something, he went out and did it. That's how he ended up owning a yellow turn of the last century farmhouse on a hilly acre in Ridgefield, Connecticut, a house that his wife, Mary Jean, calls a major fixer-upper. Mr. Heller, a commodities broker at Car Futures, saw the potential in the house and set about restoring it himself. He installed new woodwork, nailed in the window trim, hung the doors, replaced the stair rails. Even when the outside needed a coat of paint, he climbed a ladder with a brush in his hand and did the job. He was self-taught with only some Time Life books and television to help him. And, of course, his wife. We watched a lot of Bob Vila on TV, Mrs. Heller said. The house became a home for the Hellers and their 4 children. The only part he did not build was the new wing put on a few years before, which included enormous windows that framed the views of trees and old stone walls. So much of him is right here, Mrs. Heller said. He fell in love with the house and convinced me I never really fell in love with it until it started taking shape. He was the one who had the vision. A Ridgefield resident for 10 years, he was the father of Jack, 8, Catherine, 6, Grace, 4, and Michael, 15 months. He loved to ski and golf and was an avid runner who successfully completed the New York City Marathon, often participating in runs sponsored by the Boys and Girls Club. He played in the Ridgefield Men's Softball League and coached Little League for several years. He loved sports and he loved his children, said Mrs. Heller. He spent all of his free time with the children. We leave you with a few minutes of reflection before our next marking at 9:03. The bells on the old stone church just struck 9 o'clock. And at this point, 24 years ago, we all wondered what kind of tragic accident had just occurred on the south side of New York. We were glued to our television sets as rescuers were trying their best to make it to the World Trade Center to see what they could do to start to help people evacuate the building. Firemen were streaming up while people were streaming down. It was at that moment at 9:03 when the second plane hits the South Tower. This could not be an accident. We were under attack. It was at that moment that the mindset changed for every American. Not only every American, but worldwide. A superpower had been struck. We place a wreath for Flight 175, remembering those lives lost in the impact at 9:03 a.m. Please take a moment for silent prayer and reflection. John Hart, 38, lived in Cuyahoga Falls and worked in Cleveland. Born February 27, 1963, he was killed at the World Trade Center. Hart had left his job at Key Bank in Cleveland a year earlier and moved his family from Cuyahoga Falls to California for a better paying job. He intended to return to Ohio eventually, but on September 11th, he was teaching a project management class at the World Trade Center. At 8:56 a.m., he called his wife Lori in Danville, California, to tell her to turn on the television, that a plane had just crashed into the North Tower. The Harts were still on the phone at 9:03 a.m. when the second jet struck the South Tower. I've got big problems here, he said before the line went dead. In 1989, on the Akron to Pittsburgh shuttle, John Patrick Hart noticed a flight attendant showing photos of her two young children to a friend. He started making a point of using that shuttle. 5 flights later, he asked the attendant out for dinner, but only if she would bring her children. He knew I was a single mom, and that was my life, said Lori Hart, his wife of 10 years. We went bowling and had pizza. The next morning, a huge, beautiful spray of 24 roses came. That date set the tone for their life together. They always did things as a family: long walks, bike rides, pizza dinners. Hart, a technology specialist at Franklin Templeton in San Francisco, where they had recently moved, was scheduled to attend a seminar in New York on September 9th at Fiduciary Trust. He uncharacteristically put off packing. "I can't get into it," he told his wife. "I want to stay home with you and the kids." But on September 13th, she was to join him for a long weekend of plays and restaurant dinners, and two elder children agreed to care for the two younger ones. It was to be Mrs. Hart said, Mrs. Hart said, the first weekend alone since their marriage. Lori Hart learned that her husband had an opportunity to exit the building, but went back to help someone else. "I was told that he had taken the elevator down with a coworker and had a chance to get out of the building," Lori said. The coworker said he looked so full of energy and turned to her and said, "I have to go back." For friends of John, that is very easy to believe. That's the kind of person John was, always wanting to help somebody else, said Monty Morgan, who took a vacation at Hart's California home in August 2001. "I can just picture him holding somebody else and assuring them that everything would be all right." Debbie Medwig, 46, formerly of North Olmsted, born March 21st, 1955. She was killed at the World Trade Center on board United Flight 175 that crashed into the South Tower. Medwig was senior programming director at North Star, Massachusetts, largest investor-owned electric and gas utility. Never afraid to fly, which she said so often, yet she was a practical woman and aware of the dangers. Whenever the North Olmsted High School graduate and her husband, Michael Tavolorella, traveled to the same destination, she insisted they fly on separate planes. She always said that if anything ever happened to her, she wanted to make sure someone was around to take care of her daughter, Cassandra. Medwig's mother, Betty Lou Medwig, said, "Their precautions spared their daughter from becoming an orphan September 11th. Debbie Medwig was among the passengers on United Airlines Flight 175 from their home in Boston to Los Angeles, the second plane to crash into the World Trade Center in New York. Her husband took a different flight that day, and his plane was forced to land in St. Louis during the terrorist attacks." George Spencer III, 50, grew up in Shaker Heights. Born November 5th, 1951, he is still missing from the World Trade Center. Mr. Spencer, also known as Twig, was employed by Euro brokers in the credit derivatives division. George was in his office on the 84th floor of 2 World Trade Center when tragedy struck. George had a devoted husband of Kathy and father of 2, born in Cleveland, Ohio. George, the son of Dr. and Mrs. George E. Spencer, Jr. of Mount Dora, Florida, graduated from the University School in Shaker Heights, Ohio, and Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. George's younger brother, Jeffrey, was his wife, Sandy, and son, Jonathan, lived in Davidson, North Carolina. An outdoorsman at heart, George loved biking, climbing, and sailing. George's true passion and dedication was to his family, as well as his close friends. Within minutes of the attack, Spencer reached his mother, Jean, in Florida, and his brother, Jeffrey, in North Carolina. He left a voicemail message for his wife, Kathy, in Norfolk, Connecticut. He couldn't reach his children, Ted and Lisa, at the University of Utah. As a legacy, his friends have established an endowed lectureship on international relations at University School. Todd Weaver, 30, grew up in North Carolina. Born December 31st, 1970, he was killed at the World Trade Center. Weaver, a vice president of hedge funds for Fiduciary Trust International with offices at the World Trade Center, earned his high school nickname, the Lieutenant, in 1986 at Western Reserve Academy in Hudson, where he wore a crew cut and said, "Yes, sir," to his football coach. He graduated from Miami University with a degree in political science and taught English in Japan with his wife, Amy Lawson Weaver, his college sweetheart from Cincinnati, and later worked at an investment banker in Chicago in early 2001. They moved to New York. In early 2001, they moved to New York. Once on a skiing trip with his wife and his in-laws, he discovered that he was not the best skier in the family, but he was determined that he was not going to be beaten by anyone, said his father-in-law, Ted Lawson. So Mr. Weaver studied up and took lessons, and then by the next year, surprised everyone by blasting down the mountain. The proud new best skier in the family, his brand new bright yellow jacket clearly visible to all. Mr. Weaver, 30, could be playfully competitive, but when it came to his family and his livelihood, he was all business. He and his wife, who met at Miami University in Ohio, carefully planned their moves around the world to Japan, Atlanta, Chicago, and finally to New York, with good jobs and graduate degrees along the way. He got his MBA from the University of Chicago in August 2000, and within a month, he had a job offer in New York. On September 11, 2001, he was at work at 2 World Trade Center, where he was a vice president at Fiduciary Trust International. He was just the kind of guy you'd want as your son or husband, said his mother-in-law, Sharon Lawson. He was just solid. Fresh from a 1-year teaching job in Japan and a wealth of travel in the Far East, Todd Weaver and his college sweetheart wife loaded up their car in 1994 and headed to Chicago to try their luck in the big city. He didn't have a job or a home, but it didn't take long before the Ohio native made his mark in Chicago's financial world. He was one of our rising stars, the youngest senior consultant we've ever had, said John Elwood, chairman of E.J. Elwood and Associates, a Chicago investment company where Weaver worked from 1998 to 2000. He was a marvelous guy, mature beyond his years, but he wanted to go to New York to make his fortune. Armed with a master's degree from the University of Chicago, Weaver, 30, secured a coveted job as a vice president with Fiduciary Trust Company International. He moved to New York City with his wife, Amy. Marilyn Weaver said her son was ambitious, but also a caring man with many friends, a sharp mind, and a dry sense of humor. New York was his dream, he said. It turned out to be a nightmare. Her son was in his office on the 94th floor of the World Trade Center South Tower when the first jet sliced through the North Tower. He called his wife in panic. About 15 minutes later, the second jet hit his building. We pause now for reflection as we approach our 9:37 moment.
connected.
had to get to the airport for their ceremony. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monuments September 11th Remembrance Ceremony, Part 1. We invite you to join us for Part 2 here on Public Square at 11:30 a.m. on our northwest steps. If you're able, we'll be having a keynote speaker in Rear Admiral Michael N. Parks, current CEO of the American Red Cross in the Northeast Ohio region, and retired Admiral of the Coast Guard. We'll also be presenting wreaths with civilians and military personnel escorted by the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. So please do join us at 11:30 for that ceremony. This morning we've marked our moments at 8:46 when Flight 11 hit the North Tower in New York on September 11th, 2001. At 9:03, Flight 175 hit the South Tower. It was at that time that the world changed forever, and we knew that we were under attack, and this had not been just another tragic accident. At 9:37, we'll be marking Flight 77's striking of the Pentagon. The intention by these terrorists was to dismantle Americans' way of life and our ability to respond. They failed. The Pentagon strike took down one wall, but as we saw, the Americans rose up from all corners of the country to lend a hand and to help those that could in any way that they could. We've heard several biographies of individuals who perished from Northeast Ohio, and a couple of them are noted as having gone back in to try and rescue their coworkers. It was about now, 9:35, that Flight 77 started to descend toward the Pentagon. Those on the flight rose up against their attackers, against their hijackers, and attacked them. This may be why that flight ran lower to the ground than it was intended. Lieutenant Colonel David Scales, 44, lived in Cleveland and Berea. Born September 27, 1956, he was killed at the Pentagon. Scales was at work in personal headquarters at his second floor desk in a sector of the Pentagon known as the D Ring. On the wall of his crucible was a photograph of his family, his wife Tricia, and 12-year-old son Ashton, taken during a tour of the Pentagon at 9:26 a.m. At 9:26 a.m., Scales had sent an email message to his wife in Sierra Vista, Arizona, an arid locale where she had moved with her son to ease his recurring asthma. He complained about a cold he had caught, with no mention of the attack underway in New York. Known as a perfectionist who couldn't rest until every job was finished, he showed up early to work and regularly stayed late. With his red hair and ever-present smile, he was well known in the Washington area, Army Reserve community, and was described as an extremely professional, dedicated officer. By age 12, David had composed his first song, inspired by the landing on the moon, called Blast Off Moon. He sent the song to former President Richard Nixon and astronaut Neil Armstrong as his tribute to them, and performed it on the Jerry Lewis telethon. The David the family knew was hilarious. Lanky, redheaded Davy. Music was his heart and soul. He practiced fastidiously at least 2 hours a day on his electric keyboard in his Washington apartment, or on his beloved baby grand piano at his parents' house in Lynchburg, Virginia, and played regularly with his trio, Bridges to Bliss. They knew the funny songs he composed at family dinners for every pet or friend while growing up in Ohio. It was now at 9:37 that the plane struck the Pentagon. Lieutenant Colonel David Scales spent 20 years composing songs, from the 67 poems in Robert Louis Stevenson's A Children's Garden of Verses. His younger sister, Lisa, asked him to play them when she was 6 years old. Today, his musical produced with those songs fills an 8x11 printer paper box. His family had hoped to see him produce that musical on Broadway when he retired in June of 2001. When he was a teenager, David attempted to see his idol Richard Rodgers of Broadway's Rodgers and Hammerstein duo at a concert the family went to see. I looked up after the concert wondering where he was, and there was David on stage with Mr. Rodgers, his mother said. He got his sheet music from the... While in high school, in lieutenant in the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. He graduated from the University of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music with a degree in music theory and composition in 1979, and with a commission in the U.S. Army Reserve as a second lieutenant, Medical Services Corps. As part of his basic officer training, he was given an opportunity for active duty in Germany and South Korea. He chose the latter for 1 year and was stationed on the demilitarized zone at Camp Zama. Upon his return to the U.S., rather than revert to civilian status, he elected to stay as a reservist on extended active duty, and was assigned to be company commander of 300 enlisted personnel at Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center, Aurora, Colorado. While there, he met and married his wife, Patricia. During his military career, Colonel Scales attended numerous military schools, the most important being the Army Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. He also attended the Air Force War College and Defense Strategy School and the Command, Control, and Communication School. In May 2001, as the Personnel Policy Integrator at the Duty Chief of Staff's office, working at the highest level of Army personnel policy and the distinguished career with the Army Reserve, Scales focused on a number of initiatives that affected the readiness of the Army Reserve. He died at his desk in the Pentagon on September 11, 2001, just 6 months shy of retiring after 22 years. Terrance Michael Lynch, 49, grew up in Youngstown. Born September 5, 1952, he was killed at the Pentagon. Terry was born to Thomas and Kathleen Lynch in Youngstown, Ohio, where he later received a Bachelor of Arts and Master's degree in history. Following his marriage to Jacqueline in 1977, they moved to the Washington, D.C. area where they had 2 daughters. Throughout his life, Terrance Michael Lynch understood the value of helping others, whether it was driving and connecting with children with Down syndrome, volunteering for the JCs, or lobbying the United States Congress to increase funds to aid medical research to help children with juvenile arthritis. Terry always wanted to make life a little bit better for those around him. For more than 20 years, Terry worked for different branches of the U.S. government. Working on behalf of the citizens of Alabama, Terry fought to move the aviation and troop command from St. Louis, Missouri to Huntsville, Alabama during the 1995 base realignment closure efforts. It was also due to Terry's efforts that an aviation and missile command center was created in Huntsville, providing more than 1,800 jobs in the area. As a member of Congressman Shelby's staff, it was Terry who initiated the investigation into the Gulf War illness and continued relations with the Middle East countries. Later, he moved to the Senate Intelligence Committee as the committee's Gulf War illness and Middle Eastern affairs expert. In September 1999, Terry left the U.S. government and joined the staff of Booz Allen and Hamilton as a military and healthcare insurance expert. During his time at Booz Allen, Terry was responsible for the Army Online Education Program, Army University, and the day of his death, Terry was attending a meeting to extend military survivor benefits to military families. We'll now have a moment of silent prayer and reflection as we approach the South Tower collapse at 9:59 a.m. since 9:03 a.m. and the second hit on the South Tower. The people of New York were running, those running from the south of New York, and those first responders who were running into southern New York. Those that were making their ways through the streets, up the towers, coordinating as they could. Those efforts would save many, but unfortunately lose many first responders. At 9:59, the South Tower collapsed. This was something thought impossible. But as the heat melted girders and weight came down upon weight, the tower couldn't take any more. New York was covered in the dust that followed. The unthinkable had happened. For many of us, we huddled around television sets and we're trying to get a hold of our family members. The skies had emptied. It was eerily quiet. The phone lines were jammed. Many couldn't get through. Terror was gripping everyone. Over Cleveland, there was a lone jet. One item flying through the sky, soon joined by military planes zipping past at unbelievable speeds. But one airliner still in the skies, having been taken over by terrorists. Flight 93 was headed back toward the East Coast. It had turned over Cleveland and was on its way to create more havoc. Please take a moment for quiet reflection of this as we approach the moment when the South Tower collapses. At 9:59, we'll play taps marking that moment. At 9:57, just before the collapse of the South Tower, the passengers on Flight 93 began their assault. They were going to take back this plane from the terrorists. They charged forward and did their best to overtake the terrorists. They breached the door to the cockpit and were able to force a crash landing. Really, a crash. There was no landing. Flight 93 plummeted to the ground in Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. We ask you to take a moment, place this wreath in honor of Flight 93. Take a moment for silent prayer and reflection with the playing of taps at the moment of impact, 10:03 a.m. The next moment will be marked in the collapse of the North Tower. As you see around here, we're going to be preparing for our 11:30 ceremony. At 11:30, the monument will be commemorating September 11th on our northwest steps with keynote speaker Rear Admiral Michael Parks, current CEO of the American Red Cross in Northeast Ohio, and retired Admiral of the U.S. Coast Guard, deployed to many tragedies over his many years in the service. So if you're able to join us, please do come out at 11:30. We'll also have civilian and military presenters presenting wreaths for these moments for our branches of the military who served in the subsequent 20-year war on terror. So if you're able to join us, please do. We'll also be live streaming here on YouTube. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take a wander around and happy to answer any questions you might have about the We marked all the moments this morning. We have two more to go, 10:28 and then 10:50. September 11th ceremony on YouTube, but I am going to start reading some stuff here. Welcome back. We are the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument. We are conducting our morning ceremony for the September 11th Remembrance. We have laid wreaths for Flight 11, Flight 175, Flight 77, and most recently Flight 93, which crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania after flying over Cleveland. We are also remembering the 13 Northeast Ohio victims and reading their bios this morning. So I would like to talk to you about Wendy Faulkner. Wendy Faulkner was 47. Born July 25th, 1954, she was killed at the World Trade Center. For more than a year, one of Wendy Faulkner's closest friends tried to get her to come work for her, but Faulkner resisted. She didn't want to uproot a family life in Ohio with her husband and 2 girls. Yet her friend had an offer Faulkner couldn't refuse. She took a job as the vice president of information systems for Aon Risk Services in Chicago. Faulkner had been commuting from her Mason, Ohio home to Chicago, flying home for long weekends. This was about to end, as her family was negotiating on a house in Naperville and planned to be there soon. All of that changed when Faulkner, 47, came to New York for a business meeting on the 104th floor of the South Tower of the World Trade Center on September 11th. Her husband, Lynn Faulkner, never heard from her again. Years ago, Wendy Faulkner started collecting names from her missionary parents of families in poverty-stricken countries. She would then fill up boxes of clothing and goods and send them off to those families. After learning of Wendy's death, one of the families who had received her boxes for years sent Faulkner's husband an email saying that the children would miss Auntie Wendy's boxes. The message nudged a grieving Lynn Faulkner into action. We just cannot let the final chapter of Wendy Faulkner's life be the fact that she was murdered, he said. For that reason, Lynn Faulkner has established the Wendy Faulkner Memorial Children's Foundation. Susan Getzendanner, 58, grew up in Shaker Heights. Born in 1953, she was killed at the World Trade Center. Getzendanner, a world traveler, had lived in New York for the last 36 years and worked as a customer service representative for Fiduciary Trust in the World Trade Center. Her brother Tom worked in the same building on the 38th floor, but was able to escape. Born during World War II, she died under similar conditions in the attack on the World Trade Center. Ironic because her life was spent journeying the world, trusting her fellow human beings, and being sustained by her spiritual beliefs. Sue grew up in Shaker Heights, Ohio, and graduated Wells College in 1965, then settled in New York City and devoted her career to the Fiduciary Trust Company. True to character, she ignored the competitive aspects of asset management and focused instead on delivering customer service. She loved Manhattan's diversity. When a 7-year marriage to Peter Alsop ended with childless divorce, an amateur Gilbert and Sullivan theatrical group called the Blue Hill Troupe on the Upper East Side became her family. Later, she sunk deep roots into Salisbury, oscillating comfortably back and forth between New York's bustle and hiking or gardening on Mount Riga. People in all walks of life trusted her judgment and fed off her presence. Thrift, adventure, loyalty, and compassion were her hallmarks. She traveled prolifically, especially to Nepal and Tibet, always leaving behind something of herself wherever she went. Nothing could match a trek in the Himalayas for setting her spirits soaring. I think it was the all-inclusiveness of it and the spirituality of Buddhism, said Fiona Fine, a longtime friend. She recalls, she had meetings with various Buddhist sages whom she found to be enormously spiritually powerful people. They were interested in something she wanted. She had a great grin and several gray hair, and she never died. Living on the Upper East Side, she worked behind the scenes for the Blue Hill Troupe, and on weekends, she went to her cottage at the foot of Mount Riga in Connecticut, which, like her apartment, was filled with handicrafts and art from her travels. Her brother, Tom Getzendanner, lamented the fact that the woman who spent her life traveling foreign lands and trusting others was killed in the act of international terrorism. It is now at 10:28 that we mark the collapse of the North Tower.
Bluetooth is disconnected.
Please take a moment for prayer and reflection. Peter Mardikan, 29, in-laws lived in Parma. Born August 22nd, 1972, he was killed at Windows on the World restaurant on the top floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Peter worked for a company called Imagine Software in Manhattan. That morning, he was preparing a software exhibit for a trade show in the World Trade Center at Windows on the World, which was a popular restaurant on the top floor of the North Tower. It was a city he had dreamed of living and working in. He had been married for 6 weeks to his college sweetheart, someone whom friends would later say that he wouldn't have been complete without. He was beginning to realize his personal and professional dreams. The world looked to be his oyster, and he believed that he and his spouse had the rest of their lives to explore it. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 slammed into the North Tower, slicing through floors 94 through 98. Those in the direct path of the Boeing 767 aircraft that had been used as a weapon were likely killed. No one in the floors above floor 91 would survive because they had no way out and firefighters could not reach them. According to Peter's wife, Corinne, the daughter of Paul and Kathy Biskid of Parma, he called her at 9:05 a.m. using a landline phone, one that was miraculously still working on the 106th floor. She recalled that during the conversation, he said it was very, very smoky, and we think a bomb hit here. I'm having a hard time breathing. I probably won't make it out of here. I just want you to know I love you. Kathleen Kit Faragher, 33, grew up in Russell Township. Born December 4th, 1967, she was killed at the World Trade Center. The Falghers had lived in Russell Township in Cuyahoga County until Kit Falghers' senior year, 1985 to 86, when they moved to Boca Raton, Florida. Later, Kit moved to Colorado to work for Janus. Faragher, a computer programmer for Janus Capital Corporation in Denver, had been attending a technology conference. She attended West Cuyahoga High School and finished her senior year at a Boca Raton, Florida high school, and then received degrees in business and computer information systems from Florida Atlantic University. Her sister, Beth Faragher, said about Kit, "She was just a fun person to be around. You know, how you sometimes hear someone say that somebody was good people? That was Kit." Another sister, Mary Waterman, said that Kit was governed by an unebbing generosity of spirit. Once, several years ago, Kit, Mary, and Beth went for a hike with the family, including 2 children, and got terribly lost. They stumbled back to camp 6 hours later, but it was too late to cook the s'mores that Mrs. Faragher had promised her nieces the next morning. Mrs. Waterman said, as the children rubbed the sleep from their eyes, their Aunt Kit toasted marshmallows and served s'mores for breakfast. Kit is still remembered in West Cuyahoga schools, where a plaque was erected in 2004 at the middle school. We pause now for silent reflection as we head to our last moment of the morning, 10:50. Please do consider joining us on Public Square at 11:30 on our northwest corner of the monument on 3 Public Square. We'll be conducting our main ceremony, which will include a keynote by Rear Admiral Michael N. Parks of the U.S. Coast Guard retired, who is the current CEO of the American Red Cross in Northeast Ohio region. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again at 10:50.
the county and state.
Morning.
We'll use their state. Okay, we're going to start out here.
Just watch your top up here.
Oh, yeah, geez. You know.
I nailed it this morning.
This is a place that we can get you more.
Generally, I throw everything behind this list here.
Okay. With the sheriff's 14, okay. I was with the clinic before this. I worked in the coroner's office and I worked as a firefighter. Okay, so my whole last 48 years. Good. Okay, yeah. You're looking great. Things are going up. Try to slow down a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, things are going good. Just, trying to get through all the rigmarole, all the changes that we're making, and this, that, and the other. So, good. I'll tell you.
Out of the way.
Oh, sorry. Let me get up.
So.
Yeah. Thank you.
So just the lead up here with it?
Yeah, so you'll place it,
Oh,
give it a,
place it.
yeah, place it, give it a salute, and then. Yep.
Or does it matter?
The camera's over there. We're running right now, actually. Do you want to grab that?
Just put it back for now. Put it back for
Yeah, if you guys want to take a seat over there, we're gonna do it right now. Keep going. It's good. Thank you for coming back. We're going to be starting our 11:30 ceremony, and to join us are the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. At 10:50 a.m., the Pentagon collapsed. This is the last moment we'll be marking of our September 11th tragedy. The towers were struck in the morning by flights 11, 175, 77, hit the Pentagon. Flight 93 downed in Shanksville, the tower collapse, and now the Pentagon. As we close, Sheriff, if you'll present our wreath. Those that ran in and never ran back out are represented in our first responders, but not only on that day. The first responders continued for the next 20 years in our war on terror. We salute those who joined their local CERT, their American Red Cross chapter, those that joined service in politics, in their local offices, in their national offices, all the way to those who went overseas to protect us here. We thank those first responders for their work. We will end with the playing of taps and a benediction. Let us close with words of resolve and peace. Spirit of healing and hope, as we leave this place of remembrance, may we carry with us the lessons of September 11th. Let us honor the fallen by how we live, with compassion for one another, with courage in the face of fear, and with unity that transcends division. May the memory of those we lost inspire us to reject hatred and choose peace. May the resilience shown in the face of tragedy continue to guide us as a people. And may we find strength in remembering not only to mourn what was taken, but to cherish what endures: love, freedom, and the bonds that make us one nation. Go forth in peace, and let remembrance be our guide. Amen. Thank you to the Army Corps Band for their rendition of Taps this morning. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department for their help this morning as well, and to our caretaker, Madison Machusik, for his help as well. We encourage you to join us at 11:30, whether it be on Public Square for our main ceremony featuring Rear Admiral Michael N. Parks, or on YouTube on live stream. We'll be ending this live stream and starting another on our channel, so please stay tuned.